Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Yewande Faloyan. I'm a former McKinsey consultant and Morgan Stanley VP turned founder, CEO, and certified leadership coach. Today's live is part of a series that I am experimenting with called Weekly Success Habits. It's inspired by a conversation that I had last week with clients and friends, and it is experimental. So if you find it useful, and something that you'd like to see me do more regularly, then let me know in the comments or DM me directly. And if you're watching this later, do put a hashtag replay so that I know and I can kind of come back with any questions that you have. So the whole idea of this series is we get so wrapped up in like the day to day, right? In the week to week. And on a Sunday, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got Monday, I've got so much to do. And what we don't do is sort of figure out like how do we set ourselves up for success on a weekly basis. So the idea of this is really thinking about what creates that weekly success habit for you, hence the title. And we're going to be kicking off today, kicking the series off with the importance of creating value adding space. So let's get clear about why this is important and what value adding space is. So value adding space is basically or value adding efforts are basically the things where you are adding the most value that you can. They're often very unique to you, distinct, i.e., so you may think, well, I'm the only one who can do this. It's right in your arena of strength. So the things that you're great at, the things that you're passionate about, they align with your values and they're really where you create the most value. And why this is important is that if you think about it, your value, especially as leaders and people who achieve a lot and are able to provide lots of different perspectives and a lot of brain power, it's rarely in the to do list. It's rarely in the ticking off of items that you feel like you have to do or need to do. It's actually in the unique, distinct impact that you have based on your experience, based on the way that you think, based on the way you solve problems, or the way that you work with people. It's like your superpowers. And unfortunately, sometimes the to do list sort of hides all of that because we're just in scramble mode. And I've coached many people on this. And here's a little tip, it's really about time. And I know we all say that I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time. But it's often more, and I would say 95% of the time, it's about energy and about priorities. So we're going to talk today about how you create, or briefly, I'm going to give you some tips on how you create that value adding space that will enable you to do more of the stuff that adds value and impact to anything that you're doing versus just kind of getting through your to-do list. First thing you have to do is decide how important this is to you. So you might be listening to me going, yeah. It's not that important, really. All I want to do is tick boxes. This is not for you. This is for people who are thinking, well, there's so much more I can give, and I just feel like I don't have the time because I'm just ruled by my to-do list. I'm ruled by my inbox. However, if you know that this is important because you know that were you able to create that space, it would make a huge difference to the impact that you have in your work, as well as kind of your success, your fulfillment, your satisfaction. Then the first step is to think about how important it is to you on a scale of 1 to 10, right? One being don't really care, 10 being this is honestly the most important thing that I could do. Rate it, and then let's move forward. So if you've rated it sort of an eight or above, even a 7 or above, then the question is, how do you make this happen? If it's important to you, the only way to make it happen is to actually block the space and create the space by booking time into your diary. I do this every week. And I'm actually coming to you a little bit earlier because my time literally starts in 15 minutes. But I block space in my diary, which is 2 hours on a Monday morning. That is unmovable, right? I don't care if Obama comes into town. I am taking that space because I know that it creates so much impact for me, my clients, in my business, and also just makes me much happier when I interact with everyone else throughout the rest of the day and the week. I call it personally my strategic planning time, and it just enables me to kind of get a view of what's going on in my landscape, what are my priorities for the week, and a few other things, which I'll kind of talk about in future sessions of the series. When things come up, which they inevitably do, so I made a joke about if Obama comes into town. I mean, I'd probably still take that meeting. But when things come up, again, remember, it's not about time, it's about energy and priorities. So if you do feel like you can't take that space that you've blocked out in your diary, then it's about going, well, if this was a client meeting or it was the most important meeting in the world, again, back to importance, what would I do? Well, you probably wouldn't just cancel it. You probably move it to a different time or maybe shorten it a little bit. So what I may do is I may go, well, I usually block out 2 hours in the morning. If something critical came up that needed my attention, and the bar is pretty high on what that critical thing is, I may shorten my strategic time to 1 hour and then move the other 1 hour to later on in the day or tomorrow, or move the full 2 hours to another time. The point is, I do not cancel this meeting with myself because, as I said, it's just as important, arguably even more important than my most senior client meeting. Best practices, because this comes up. I always recommend at least 1 hour. If you can make it two, then even better, either together or separately. If all you can manage initially is 30 minutes, then do the 30 minutes, see how that works out. And if it works out for you, then keep doing that. If you need to expand it, then expand it, right? Part of this is experimenting, similar to this series that I'm currently trying. As a heads up, when things get busy, this is often the first thing that goes. But what you do need to do is go back to the importance of it for you. If you feel like this is important enough for you to want to do, because you know that it helps you create the value that you want to add and it helps you to differentiate yourself, then if it's important enough, then you have to prioritize it, not just in spite of the busyness, but because of the busyness, because it helps to ground you, helps to take you back to where your value is, where you can add that value, and therefore create more of an impact, even in the middle of busyness. And what I found, both for myself and my clients, is that actually when we prioritize this in times of craziness, we find that it actually helps to address those things as opposed to us just going back into that cycle of doing, doing, doing. All right, almost done. As a couple of bonuses, first of all, we've talked about this, or I've been talking about this primarily for strategic thinking. This works for anything, right? So I often block and batch things for my marketing time or block and batch it for replying emails, right? The whole point is if something's important to create that space as opposed to waiting for the space to come to you because the space rarely ever comes. If we don't create it, it doesn't happen. So experiment a little bit, right? Try batching at different times of the day or blocking out time at different times of the day, batching different pieces of work that you're doing, trying different days of the week, trying experimenting with what you do within that time that helps you to create the impact that you want. If it's not working, that's okay, right? Go back and see, is it important? If so, then try again and experiment slightly differently. Nothing ever happens in one go the first time that we do it. But if it is important, then it's important to prioritize it. Next steps. So, what you are going to do now is very simple. Just block the time in your calendar as you would a very important client meeting. Don't move it, experiment, see how it helps. Even if you're not sure what to do, go for a walk in that time, get your head clear so that you can create the value that you know that you're capable of in a way where you feel like you're not just running around. All right. If you're ready for more support, I've got a link in the comments. So click on that and let's have a chat. Until next time, stay safe, stay focused, and stay energized.